Welcome to today's webinar, Guidelines for Success in the Small Commercial Lines Market. I'm Mark Brading, SMA Partner, and I'm going to be joined today by SMA founder Deb Smallwood. Small commercial has always been an important segment of the market, but it seems like there's a revolution underway over the last couple of years. A great deal of innovation and experimentation is underway. We're seeing insurers introduce new products and coverages, look at new distribution options, focus on specific subsegments, go after micro businesses and more. And the small business environment itself is very active and it's continually changing, which presents a lot of opportunities. There are somewhere around 11 million small businesses in the U.S. that employ less than 20 people, and another 6 million or so that employ between 20 and 500. And this great entrepreneurial wave that's underway presents a lot of opportunities for insurers. Now, in this webinar, we're going to look at the big trends in this space. We're going to cover some key approaches we see insurers taking, and we'll provide our view on 10 guidelines for success for the small commercial market. So let's talk about some of the big trends first. Along with commercial lines overall, there's a move to more specialization. There's a keener understanding and awareness of identifying target segments using analytics. The program business continues to expand and be a big focus area. We're seeing digital, again, just like insurance overall, transformation is really morphing and shifting. There's a lot of uncertainty still, and we're in this big wave, but it's a big force. We're seeing a lot of new entrants. We're going to talk about some of those. Not as many entering as there were maybe a couple of years ago, but we're moving towards the more mature end of the scale where many of them that started 3, 4, 5 years ago, are having an impact in the market, and we see lots of partnerships underway. We're seeing a lot of interesting things like agents launching their own digital brands and insurers launching separate companies' digital brands. We're also seeing incumbent tech firms that are focusing on small commercial and bringing tech solutions to the agent community, and InsurTechs are doing that as well. And what we're going to share here is that there's multiple models that are seeing success in this market. So it's a pretty exciting time, and it seems like everyone that has anything to do with small commercial is engaged in one way or the other. So, the industry at large is going through this major transformation, and each insurer has their own transformation journey. We believe that, building out the strategies for that journey should be centered around customer focus, which is the Y axis here, and then operational advancement, which is the X axis. Now, today, many tend to have incremental improvements in their operations, and are maybe in the earlier stages of true full customer engagement, which kind of positions the companies in the lower left in the traditional area. Of course, the vision that many have is to have high levels of customer engagement and significant leaps, in operational efficiencies and activity there, driving towards that future state. But probably the most important element of the roadmap to get to that future state is to take both an inside-out and an outside-in view of things perspective, and then to find the right blend of those approaches to drive innovation. And this model really should guide your transformation strategy for small commercial as well as other segments. And of course, traditionally, we've taken more of an inside-out approach, thinking about our products, our operations, and how to take things to the marketplace. The customer focus kind of demands that you think about things from the marketplace perspective, from the outside in. Again, it's that blend and balance between those two perspectives that really is going to drive folks towards a true future state. Now, there's also three areas that we think drive insurance transformation, seen by this Venn diagram here. At the top, it's digital business, right? Everyone's trying to become a digital enterprise, a digital insurer, and this is the different areas of your business being digital and distribution and underwriting and claims and so forth, new business models that are digital oriented. Then on the bottom left, there are foundational technologies, the mission critical core systems, data analytics platforms, the foundation, as it says, of the infrastructure in your technology. And then on the bottom right are the transformational technologies, and there are many of these technologies that we're following and that we're seeing implemented in the insurance industry. AI, the IoT, wearables, blockchain, new payment technologies, and many more. So it's kind of the confluence of those three that we think really drives transformation and should really inform and fuel that transformation journey. So let me get into the small commercial market place here. So there are many avenues for insurers to reach small business customers. Recently, with the move to digital and with the InsurTech movement, there have been new direct approaches to the marketplace. That's what we're showing here. In just a moment, we're going to show new innovative agent-based approaches to the market as well. And of course, they're hybrids. These aren't all kind of pure, but generally speaking, these are some of the ways that insurers are really trying to reach the small business market and grow their business in those areas. So let me go through some of these first. The first, which is the light blue down at the bottom on the left, really is the direct digital model. So enabling small business customers to come straight into their website or their mobile, that's branded with the main insurer brand, and do business direct without the interaction of any agent. And this has been deployed for years in the personal line space. It's moving to small commercial right now. And of course, small business owners are more tech savvy as well, and some want this kind of self-service, and they're happy to work through an app or a website to find the coverages, the products that they need to support their business. Right? So Hiscox would be an example of this. They're doing a number of interesting things in this area, but many others are moving in this direction as well. Then at the top, another approach that quite a few insurers are taking is to establish a digital brand. And in this case, a lot of times the idea is to distinguish it, to separate it from their agent channel, the business they do directly through the agents. And in most cases, the underwriting, the back office support are going to remain with the insurer, but the front end marketing and sales are done via a newly established visible brand in the marketplace. And this would be like Berkshire Hathaway's 3 Insurance or Pinnacle's Cake Insure and others that are setting up new digital brands. And then the third way that they're reaching out direct is through InsurTech. And I guess you could call this really a hybrid, a blend of digital and an agent-based approach, because there are quite a few InsurTech digital agents or MGAs or brokers that are spawned as a complete digital enterprise from the get-go and connecting into the insurer in the background, offering that almost self-service capability to the small business owner, but ultimately they are actually agents and brokers themselves. And some of those are broadly covering small commercial. Others are focused on a specific area like workers' comp for small business. And there's still others that are going after specific segments, small business segments. So some examples would be Bunker, Pi, and others. Now, at this stage, I'm going to turn it over to Deb to talk about some of the agent-based approaches.
Thank you, Mark, and hello, everyone. You know, what's really important to support the approaches of small commercial is a digital platform. And there's lots of definitions out there as it relates to digital platform. Our definition is it's a technology that stitches together the various types and components of digital engagement, right? So it's supporting the digital engagement that Mark was just talking about. And digital engagement can be any kind of stakeholder, and it could find, educate, ask, listen, or even transact. We tend to default to the quote and to the servicing, but the digital platform in the slides that Mark was talking about, it really helps support this overall digital engagement. And what the digital platform does is it creates a technology that supports all aspects of the value chain, from education, marketing, product, the whole distribution, let it be direct, or as Mark talked about, the different approaches, and all the way through the value chain. What we're finding is that the solutions out in the marketplace and the approaches that insurers are taking are three different ways. And it's really kind of a fascinating slide because it starts to show the maturity and the evolution of digital platforms, going from the portals, the agent portals and the customer portals and the insured portals that we had, to more of a digital platform. So what we have on the top left in the orange is an outside-in approach. And this is where solutions and insurers are really focused on the digital storefronts of the Chubb marketplace. We just saw an announcement with Nationwide, with Hiscox, putting a digital storefront out there, and that whole omni-channel experience. What we tend to see on this, it's very focused on point of sale and point of service. So they're very focused on the transaction and driving it that way. On the blue is really the evolution of the inside-out approach. And this is where we're seeing the portals and the portals provided by many of the technology companies, starting from quote, policy, billing, claims, that transaction and that inquiry. And they're moving from the right to the left, and they're moving more into becoming digital platforms, which is a good thing. And then we see the gray in the middle, which is the digital exchange. And this is really an exchange that is really connecting the distribution channels with the insurers and the connectivity. So let me show you some examples which will probably bring further clarity to this slide. When we think about the vendors out in the marketplace with the outside-in approach, there's a couple of startups, Cogitate, Insured.io, where they're very point of sale, very simplistic. It's all about the quote, either direct or through the agent. And then a great example of an InsurTech outside-in approach is Slice, where it really is a digital platform that is being used by insurers. They're selling on-demand insurance, but they're also selling their platform. And they started from that omni-channel outside-in approach. We know that Bold Penguin is the market leader in terms of InsurTech, really investing in capabilities for the independent agents and connecting to the carriers. And then the bottom right are all the different kinds of vendors that we're seeing as it relates to the digital platform. Everyone from the leaders in core providers, the Majescos, the EIS, the Sapiens, the Duck Creeks, and Surety, moving from traditional portals to more digital platforms. You have the low-code, no-code solutions, the Mendix and the OutSystems, and some of the BPM solutions. And then you're starting to see a lot of either InsurTech startups or similar solutions that are very focused on financial services and software. So this can give you an idea of digital platforms are required, and you've got some options in terms of how you're going to go about satisfying that. Then the next slide, and as we move on, this next slide is more around the 10 guidelines for small commercial. It aligns really well to the research note that we wrote, and there's 10 steps. I guess before I even go into the top 10, what we're finding is small business isn't about just modernizing your core system, putting a predictive model into place, and doing straight-through processing for BOP or for your work comp. It really is about taking, as Mark talked about, that future state holistic view, outside in, inside out, and really looking holistically at all dimensions of small business. You may not do everything, but it's really a holistic approach. And these top 10 guidelines are really great steps that every insurer should at least consider. You might find that you're not going to do anything in that area, and what we always believe is at least acknowledge it, record it, and mark it down as your assumption. So leading off, number one, from a strategic approach, and we have two dimensions of the top 10, a strategic approach and execution elements. The first one is executive sponsorship, and this is not, again, an IT project where the CIO is the executive sponsor. This has to be driven at the CEO level down, and there needs to be a business leader that is an executive sponsorship. And it could be a line of business head, it could be a small business head, depending on your size of the organization. Be really clear about that future state. Where are you going? As Mark talked about, are you building a marketplace? Are you doing connectivity? What's that platform going to look like? What's that future state for your small business policyholders, and what's the role of the independent agent as well? Design thinking, number 3, is really an innovation approach to really honing in on small, minimal viable projects or products that you're doing incremental implementations 4, 6, 8 weeks long, that you're not going and working on this project for 3 years like a core system implementation and looking up at the end of 3 years because the market will have shifted. This is future vision, small incremental minimal viable projects, and making sure that you're piling them, rolling them out, and monitoring and adapting. And it's a constant engine. Now, this might be a 3 to 5 year initiative, but there's deliverables with design thinking approach. Of course, that outside in and inside out lens, as Mark talked about, looking at the SMA transformation journey map, that outside in customer experience, both the policyholder, the claimant, the agent, all outside stakeholders, and the inside out is really about operational advancement and making sure that the two are really in sync and in harmony, because digital engagement, when you start to push out digital, either self-service or sales out to the policyholder, all of a sudden your engagement and your level of service in the operations absolutely has to advance as well. And next is the execution elements. What we're seeing in a lot of the small businesses is either creating new products or adding to new products. We just saw Chubb announced a new product as it relates to cyber in this digital world is adding new dimensions and elements. So what you may want to do is expand or extend your products, either cyber or just digital content, or you might even want to rewrite your product. What I always say is we are trying to move into more ease of doing business for a quote or for servicing, and we're sticking with the 45 data element forms of Accord. And those are all driven by the products that we have. We have to start, if we really want to change the paradigm of small commercial, we have to think about new products and new services that we're offering. Digital distribution is what Mark just went over. There's lots of different approaches. You need to understand what approach you're going to have today and where you're headed in the next 3 to 5 years. Core systems and beyond. You need a back-end system. A policy admin system has a role in this. They can't be batch, and there's still some batch systems out there, but they need to be configurable, and they need to be able to adapt in this new digital world. Data and analytics is everything from data pre-fill to new models for straight-through processing for the quoting, in customer analytics and varying levels of data and analytics that you're going to have around this whole digital engagement. And last is the transformation technologies. As Mark indicated, the transformational technologies are what are actually going to leapfrog and create differentiation. And those transformational technologies are everything from AI to RPA to cognitive to chatbots to texting, whole new levels of new user interactions from voice activation, virtual reality, gamification, of course, all the IoT, the wearables, and even blockchain as well. So those are the 10 elements. What you really need to do as you're creating your overall strategy, create that future state, really understand that outside-inside lens, and be really mindful of small incremental plans. I would suggest that you go through all 10 of these and be mindful if you're incorporating them. And again, if you're not, make the assumption that you're not going to be doing that. But I would be mindful every 6 months to a year looking up to making sure that you're staying with the market trends as well. So there's a lot of investments, our digital transformation maturity model, but there's a lot of investments. You can see this dovetails to the transformation journey, the bottom being the operational experience, the y-axis being the customer experience. And what we're finding that as we invest in digital enablement and digital platforms, right? You have your website and your social media and self-service and portals, because a lot of companies still have portals, all kinds of customer engagement and CRM. Those are going to help with the customer experience, but they're not transformational. Just like the bottom right, core system modernization and transformation, data and analytics, intelligent desktops for your claims and your underwriters, distribution management. Again, those are transformational for operational, but it's really not until you bring in the orange, which is the digital brand that Mark talked about, the digital platform, which is needed to sit across all this blue stuff, customer analytics, and all the emerging technologies, the transformational technologies that we had talked about, and really looking at the insurtechs that Mark also mentioned, where they fit in your overall plan. So lots of areas of investment. I'll end this with, of course, it's a sizable project, but there are some small things that you can do, let it be texting or a chat box, that can start your journey to help differentiate and actually, in some levels, leapfrog against your competition. I'm going to turn it back over to Mark, who is going to bring us through the call to action. Mark, all yours.
So as you can see, there's lots of options. There are a lot of things to consider. It can be kind of overwhelming. But as Deb was pointing out, it's all about building your journey and starting small and having, being able to build in capability over time as part of that transformation journey. As far as the call to action, I think the first thing is just to understand and evaluate all these options. And it's not as if you need to select one. There's only, or it's not as if you need to change your commitment to your existing traditional distribution channels, but you can see there's a lot of competitive activity out there in the marketplace, and there are new ways to reach different segments. And so even just following that and understanding, how, the implications of the various options is important. Consider those 10 success factors, but certainly from the strategy standpoint initially, and then thinking through what it takes to execute to be successful in going after new business in this area, and certainly retaining your existing small business clients. And then, of course, as you develop your plans, they should be in the context of your model, right, of what your company is comfortable with. It doesn't mean you can't be bold and do things like put a digital brand out there, but it's still extensions of your model, things that you're going to be able to execute on given your capabilities, given your culture, given your team. So we think that this is a really exciting area. It's going to continue to evolve over the next couple of years. Certainly let us know if we can help you as you think through those transformation plans, your strategies. We've seen a lot of what's happening in the market and what's working and what isn't working. So we would be glad to help out. Let me just close by talking about our SMA Summit, Transformation in Action. We're very excited this year to be partnering with the institutes, and we're also excited that we've positioned it at a different date, December 4th in New York City. We think it's a great time. It kind of sets the event apart a little bit. And what we like to do in our events, in our SMA Summit event, is really highlight what's not just the possibilities, but what's actually happening, what is in action. We like to put companies and individuals up on stage that are sharing their stories, their success stories, including those that will be in the small commercial space. We do have a recent SMA report specifically on this topic, 10 Guidelines for Success in the Small Commercial Market. And we've written a couple of blogs about this as well. And this is an area where we're going to continue to focus from a research standpoint and a consulting standpoint because there's just so much activity in the marketplace. Thank you for your attention today. Deb and I appreciate you listening in and would certainly enjoy any contacts or any feedback you have regarding this topic. And then other than that, I'll just say thank you, and we'll sign off.